Welcome, everyone, to the September 14th, 2023 monthly meeting of the Knox County Planning Commission. I am Tim Hill, Chair of the Planning Commission, and I'll be conducting today's meeting. Assisting me today is the Executive Director of Knox County Planning, Amy Brooks, and the Planning Commission Attorney, Tasha Blakeney. Okay. All right. I would like to call this meeting to order, and I'll now ask Ms. Karen to call the roll.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Commissioner Uten?
Here.
Commissioner Boyer?
Here.
Commissioner Huber?
Here.
Commissioner Shilso?
Here.
Commissioner Perez?
Here.
Commissioner Browning? Commissioner Higgins?
Here.
Commissioner Levinson?
Here.
Commissioner Biggs?
Here.
Commissioner Barber?
Here.
Commissioner Adams?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Midas?
Here.
Commissioner Hill?
Here.
That's 14 present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Karen. Participating today are planning commissioners as well as planning staff and various representatives of city and county agencies. The planning commissioners are citizens from the city and county who have been appointed by either the city mayor or county mayor. We receive no salary and volunteer our time as a service to our community. Now a word about how discussion will take place. After each item is called, I will read the staff's recommendation. On certain items, I'll call on staff to comment. At this time, the applicant may address the commission or defer his or her opening remarks and allow any opposition to speak first. The applicant and those in support of the applicant will be given a total of 5 minutes to speak. I'll then ask for other comments from the floor. The opposition will also be given a total of 5 minutes to speak. If either side wishes to have an opportunity for rebuttal, you'll need to reserve time from your allotted 5 minutes. Applicants and citizens who registered to participate and are attending the meeting in person will be asked to come to the podium and share their name and address for the record where their item is heard. Those who have registered to speak online do not need to sign in at the podium. If you'd like to speak on an agenda item and have not registered to do so in advance, please raise your hand when the item is read into the record. I'll then indicate when it is time for you to speak, and you can approach the podium at that time. You will be asked to sign in at the podium as well as state your name and address for the record. If the Planning Commission decision on that item is appealed and we need to notify you, we cannot do so without your name and address. The Planning Commission may grant additional time for presentation of information. Speakers should limit their remarks to the facts of the case and avoid repeating comments that have been previously presented to the Planning Commission. Because of the number of items we have before us, groups in favor or opposed to an item have been asked to appoint a spokesperson to represent them. If you have any items that you'd like to make part of the record, please submit the documents to knoxplanning.org/share. Please identify the file number and meeting date in your submittal. I hope all of you have reviewed the agenda package from Planning's website. In addition to the agenda, there's information on the website related to how today's meeting will be conducted, as well as correspondence on individual cases. Many of the items we vote on require further action by the City Council or County Commission. For matters that are forwarded to the City Council for final action, the applicant or their representative should be present at the meeting at which the request will be considered. For matters forwarded to County Commission for final action, particularly rezoning requests, the applicant or their representative must be present at the meeting at which the request will be considered, or the case will, at a minimum, be postponed. Applicants will be notified of the meeting date. If you have any questions regarding the meeting date or process, please contact staff. Today's meeting will be conducted in order of the agenda. Please stand as you are able as Vice Chair Chris Uten leads us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bow your heads. Our Father, bless this community. Help to ensure the decisions made this afternoon are fair, legal, and in the best interest of the total community. As always, keep us mindful of the needs of others, especially those who are in sorrow, need, sickness, or any other adversity. Amen.
We will now move to automatic postponements. Item 10, Millertown Villas. Item 20, Blackman Construction. On the 30-day postponements, do we have any recusals? If not, we have item 25, Wilkinson Subdivision. Are there any other requests to postpone?
Motion to postpone as read.
We've got Commissioner Higgins.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I was going to motion to add item number 12 to be postponed 30 days.
Are there any other requests? Vice Chair Newton, would you like to?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I'd like to amend my motion to postpone for 30 days for items number 12 and 25 as read.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Newton, seconded by Commissioner Boyer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 60-day postponements. We have item 19, Dale Akins.
Motion to postpone.
We have a motion to postpone by Vice Chair Newton, seconded by Commissioner Boyer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On the withdrawal list, item 6, Josh Jordan. Item 9, Hamilton Park. Item 23, Joshua Hahn. Item 30, DGA Residential LLC. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to withdraw.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Uten to withdraw, seconded by Commissioner Boyer. And we have a line on from Commissioner Higgins.
Just wanted to ask, item number 30, is that something that we could wait to vote on the withdrawal and let the applicants speak on that? Or do we?
No reason. They were the ones who requested the postpone.
Okay.
For withdrawal.
All right, thanks.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On the tablings list, we have item 13, Chad Wilhite. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to table.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Uten, seconded by Commissioner Boyer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have nothing to remove from the table. Oh, we do. Yes, we do. We have okay, from the tabled list, we have Gabriel W. Ratcliffe. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to remove from the table.
We have a motion to remove from the table by Vice Chair Uten, seconded by Commissioner Boyer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent list, which is composed of items marked with a C. These items are considered non-controversial and are voted on all at once in order to save time. Items are listed in the order they appear on the agenda. Please listen carefully. Once an item is approved as part of the consent list, there will be no further discussion on it. And I say this twice for a reason. We've had people sit through the entire meeting before thinking that they were going to get a chance to talk about a consent list item. So once an item is approved as part of the consent list, there will be no further discussion on it. Okay. Item 2, approval of September 14, 2023 agenda. Item 3, approval of the August 10, 2023 minutes. Item 5, Kavonda Chandler. Item 11, David Hutchins. Item 24, Beeler Road subdivision. Item 27, JW Construction on Brown Gap Road. Item 28, Vincent Landing subdivision. Item 29, Mark Campbell. Item 31, Jared Eisenhower. Item 32, Jonathan Aguirre. Item 34, Danny Allen. Item 35, final plat of Hayden Farms Phase 2. Item 36, final plat of Cherokee Woods Phase 1A. Are there any requests to remove an item from the consent list? Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent.
Mr. Chair, before you proceed to a vote, let the record reflect that Vice Chair Uten will be recusing himself from the consent vote. Are there any other recusals from consent? Thank you.
We have a motion to approve the consent list by
Second.
Commissioner Smith,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Boyer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move to item number 7. The applicant, SRI Lambadar Properties LLC, location south side of Skyline Drive, east of Oakland Street. Approximate size of tract, 10,012 square feet. Present zoning RN1, hillside protection. Zoning requested RN2, hillside protection. Existing land use, single-family residential. Staff recommendation, approve the RN2 district because it is consistent with the sector plan and surrounding development. The hillside protection overlay would be retained. All right, is the applicant present? All right. Do we have any opposition? Would the applicant like to speak? Okay, all right. Well, then we'll bring it to the commission.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion we approve the RN2 single-family residential district because it's consistent with the sector plan surrounding development.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Uten to approve per staff recommendation, RN2, seconded by Commissioner Boyer. And seeing no lights, I would ask all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to agenda item 8. Applicant, Smee Busby Architects, location northeast quadrant of the intersection of Union Avenue and State Street. Approximate size of tract, 1.12 acres. Present zoning, DKG. Zoning requested, DKB. Existing land use, transportation, communications, utilities, parking lot. Staff recommendation, deny DKB. Subdistrict because the property is not consistent with the district's intent. Is the applicant present?
Hello, Scott Busby, Smee Busby Architects.
All right. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, you
Sure.
may proceed.
Yeah, this project's taken an interesting life arc. When we first designed this, we met with the Plans Review Department and had a great meeting with them, and were informed that our interpretation of the somewhat nebulous DKG definition was wrong and that residential wasn't allowed on the ground floor. The project was submitted with 7 live-work units, that are on the ground floor, along with probably more than half the ground floor is retail, coffee shop, office space as well. We've not gotten a real clear definition from plans review whether live work would be consistent with a commercial or a residential as far as the zoning application. So we're still kind of waiting to sort of understand whether or not, and I think staff had a couple questions about the fact it's live work. Does that technically qualify as commercial? Because it could be someone like a therapist or a small makerspace was the intention of the project. So
We had a little discussion about this Tuesday. Commissioner Adams.
and just also for the record, plans review suggested that we apply for the DKB, and so that's what we did. So.
Okay. Mr. Adams.
Can you help me understand what you can't do right now with your plan? If it remained in the DKG zone?
DKG does not allow true residential on the ground floor.
I thought that you said your application, though, already had planned for the,
Live work, correct.
so,
And staff has, I guess, recommended denial above the, but we went to the whole idea of rezoning because residential is allowed in the Boulevard District. And that's what we were told would be our best path to go forward.
Commissioner Higgins.
Thank you. I think that staff got it right with their recommendation here. So I would, regardless, I think that State Street really does need more activity. The concept of a 24-hour city requires both dwelling and commercial uses, and that is the most sustainable form of a city. And so I think it's appropriate that DKG is in this area and that it requires commercial on the ground floor to provide more opportunities for pedestrians through all hours of the day and evening. So I don't see the DKB being appropriate for this area. I think that if they are wanting to pursue the live work and they're still awaiting an answer from plans review, then I could see maybe they would be interested in postponing and then revisiting it after they hear back. But as it is, I don't think I could support DKB on this side.
Commissioner Midas.
Thank you, Chairman Hill. I guess I would like to hear from Samuel. I thought there was, at the discussion that we had on Tuesday, I thought that live work was appropriate for the DKG. Is that correct? Or is it?
Yeah,
Ms.
I'll
Mike.
be able to help out.
Okay.
I have not spoken with plans review inspections directly, so I can't definitively say whether the live work space will be considered non-residential in use. My impression was that it was going to be considered non-residential, that it would be permitted, but I can't say that 100% this second. Was that what you needed?
With that, I guess I do agree with Commissioner Higgins. Just given the topography of the plot, the fact that it's not a Broadway, I do agree that the current zoning is appropriate for this spot, and I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Adams.
I'm sorry, I'm still got the furrowed brow because I'm trying to sort through, and I think I want to just say, I am very excited about the proposal to have something on that parcel other than a surface parking lot. So that's why I feel awkward about denying this, because I don't want there to be a misperception about what I think would really be great there is to extend development on that parcel. But I am curious about the idea of postponing if it's simply a matter of timing to get an approval back. Does that make sense? I'm not exactly sure what that timing would be or if that helps in any way.
I think we can further discuss that. If you don't care, let's hear the remaining comments and maybe we'll readdress that. Commissioner Huber.
I hope I didn't cut in front of anybody over there. I guess I have a bit of a different, respectfully, view about that location. You know, I'm all about a 24-hour city and everything that goes along with that, but the exact location of this one next to Marble Alley Lofts, which already has residential on the main level, and the zoning was changed after that was developed. As you go down State Street, there's no other draw down there. There's nowhere to go. It's the big parking garage at that point, and on the other side of that is a lot of interstate interchanges and a substation. So to me, there's not going to be as much draw back there for a commercial type venue. Just making the comment that I personally feel okay and more comfortable with just residential on the lower level as well. Just my opinion.
Commissioner Brannon.
Yes, with all due respect to my other commissioners, I would agree with Commissioner Huber. I'm all in favor of a 24-hour city as well. But I mean, just looking where this location is, it just seems like it lends itself to residential on that bottom floor, especially considering, the success of the development right next door to it. The Marble Alley has been, really kind of the spark that started a lot of, what's going on downtown right now. So, I think it also gives the developer a lot more leeway with making his development work, which is something we really need right now. So, I would be in full support of DKB.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
And after listening to everybody, I think where I'm at right this second is I don't want to deny something and the applicant have to start over, nor do I want to just approve something and it's not the right thing. Looking at the fact that, we're not able right this second to give a definitive answer, I would be more in line of saying, let's hit pause for 30 days. Let's get a more definitive answer on the questions he's asking so that he's not starting back from the beginning or getting things out of order. So I would be leaning right this second more towards that 30-day postponement so that we can give him a more solid answer than we think. Something a little more rock solid.
Commissioner Shelso.
I think that postponing 30 days, if the answer is you cannot do live work, so then by postponing it, it comes back before us because we want to help make the project work, I guess would be the reason to rezone it. But I don't agree that we should have continued residential on that street. Although the Marble Alley was a successful development, it has not activated that street level over there. If you walk by there and run by there, the Cal Johnson building's been reopened. So I think really Marble Alley was a good test case to show why the code is what it is now, to help promote an activated street. And so I would not be in favor of changing it to the Boulevard zone. And I don't really see what postponing it does if, that's ultimately the discussion and the choice between the two. So I'm okay postponing it, but I think ultimately I would vote against it in another month.
Commissioner Adams.
So just to sort through all the comments, if it was denied today, the request was denied today, I'm looking at everyone here because I just need a little guidance, then the applicant could continue to pursue live work, and if that was approved, he could still move forward with the development, correct? Okay. And if it is denied and the live work idea is also denied, then the developer would only be allowed to move forward with all commercial on the first floor if they so chose to continue the development. Is that correct?
Commissioner Biggs.
I just had well, I guess first of all, I'm in favor of postponing for more clarity, but second, just had a question about potentially setting precedent. Is there any danger in sort of setting the precedent for rezoning DKG to DKB? And if there's a lot of other DKG downtown, and at some point, all parts of a redeveloping downtown are going to lack kind of amenities that will make them attractive for walking. So I'm just curious if that's a concern that we should be considering.
I don't think there's a precedent here. I think you look at these cases uniquely and the surrounding area and say, is this appropriate or is it not appropriate? So by however we choose, I don't think we're setting a trend or a precedent, but this was a unique look at a specific case. Would you agree with that, Mr. Executive Director? Apparently not. Feel free. Hey, good reasonable.
In general, yes, I agree. I mean, you should look at each individual request on its own merits. I do think you do need to consider, does this I think it's a really good question. Are we setting a precedent here? And that's something that you all need to decide as a body.
You know, I wish we had someone here from Plans Review because I mean, what happens if live work, I mean, think about this. First of all, the enforcement of live work. What if I'm living and working and then I retire? Am I legal non-conforming now? Because I'm just living and not working? I mean, really, it seems a bit like not the best written language. And there are areas there are pockets of the city that I think are very challenging for retail. And I think I cited, as a matter of fact, I'm going to withhold my comments until all the lights are, I want to address it. I want to give everybody a chance before I finish my thoughts. Commissioner Browning.
Let's see, I don't know if the developers, would it be appropriate to hear the developer's take on this, the guy that's going to build it?
Well, I think Mr. Busby is representing, okay.
He's here if you want.
Mr. Goss is here.
Good afternoon, Buzz Goss with Marble Alley Development. I actually live at 300 State Street, which is right next door to this property. And so I appreciate everything that's being said, and I understand where each of you who've spoken up come from. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Commissioner Browning, to allow me to speak. You know, when it comes to urban design and development in downtowns, I've kind of been involved in it for a while. And some of the things I think that it's easy to forget are that in this type of development, in this type of city, you have A streets, B streets, and C streets. So A is like your high street, if you will, like the one that we all know about in London or Paris or New York. And that would be Gay Street, even Market Square. And B streets would be, say, the streets in the old city. And then C streets, State Street, Walnut, places like that, or they're further off the grid, they have less connectivity, and they're not really appropriate for commercial. And I understand why the zoning was done this way. I opposed it whenever it happened. I said, listen, you can't tell everybody you have to build commercial on every ground floor, right? You can compel them, but developments are what they are. And if I had to do nothing but commercial on this ground floor, I won't do this deal. It's not possible, right? That's just the facts. Right? That's a lot of rent that I'm not sure that I could collect. The closer you get to the baseball stadium, that's a different matter altogether. There's a lot of activity, a lot of interest in sports bars and restaurants and things like that. State Street doesn't have that. Next to me is the State Street parking garage, which has nothing on the ground floor. Across the street from that is the back of the theater. Now, we're all better because the theater's there, but there's nothing to activate the street. Across the street from me is the Promenade parking garage. Nothing's on the ground floor. Next to that is the old Cal Johnson building, which is beautifully restored with a commercial space that's been vacant since they completed that building. It's not really possible to tell me to do this and expect me to be able to go out there and recruit tenants because I can't. And the equity and the funding that will happen in a deal like this is not possible if the street was alive. And I get what you say, right? When you drive down in the evening, Marble Alley Lofts did not activate the street, but we made it better. And we built those ground floor units as walk-up units with full heights, storefront and things like that. So when the market comes, it can be converted. These will be the same. We're putting in retail in the corner, activating that corner, outdoor space, things that make it lively. All of our commercial amenities for our tenants, right? And we also have some office spaces on the back side of the ground floor. I'd put those offices on the front, except, you can't really bury a residence with no windows and things like that in the back. So that's why we've developed the way that we've done it. Smee Busby and McCarty, Holsap and McCarty, MHM, they've done a really great job designing this building. And it's going to be a beautiful building, and I believe it's going to be an asset. I think it's going to do what Marble Alley Lofts did, right? Another catalyst. And maybe, right, maybe I'll get to buy the parking garage across the street and make something happen. But today, it's not possible. This is a C street. And as much as I would love to have commercial, it's just not possible financially. I appreciate everything you've had to say. We didn't think we needed to be here. We didn't have to change the zoning at Marble Alley Lofts. It was accepted that we could do that, and they asked us to do the ground floor units in a certain way. We're only here because we've been asked to come here. We're told we had to come here. And so I'd appreciate your help in getting this building and this development done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goss. If it's okay with, I know we've got some lights here, but I think it might be better order to ask Mr. Ahrens to come up, because it seems like we have a lot of questions that would be related to or addressed for Mr. Ahrens.
Good afternoon, Peter Ahrens, Plans Review and Inspections Director. How can I answer some questions for you?
A couple of things I'd like to start with is let's talk about the live work and how you view that.
I don't view it any way other than the code defines it. That's what I'm going to pull up right now. Live work, a structure where residential and commercial uses are integrated that permits businesses, professions, occupations.
Hey, hang on, Mr. Ahrens, could you come closer to the microphone?
Sorry about that. A structure where residential and commercial uses are integrated that permits businesses, professions, occupations, or trades within a residential dwelling that requires employees, customers, clients, and/or patrons to visit the unit.
Okay, so I use this example Tuesday. I'm a therapist, so I'm my employee, if you will. Okay, and I have a sofa, and I sit down and talk to my clients, and now I no longer want to do that. Now what?
I think the intent is to have a storefront where the residence is either behind or above. What was submitted to our offices shows an entrance from State Street into what appears to be a living room with a kitchen right along the side. It looks like every standard residential unit, and so that's why we let the applicant know that that's not a live work. You've got to live right there.
I'm not trying to stir up an argument here.
That's okay.
But I think it's good, healthy discussion.
Sure.
Then that sounds like we're now moving from an ordinance to interpretation. And who's to say that I can't run a business with a kitchen? And why? It just seems a little arbitrary to me that because it seems like you could run a business with a kitchen.
You can run a business out of a storage facility as well.
Yeah.
So
but wouldn't that be more in the design standard rather than?
We didn't see any evidence of opportunities for a business to go in there. We saw, for instance, I wouldn't call my wife working from the kitchen table a live work. That's just my wife working at the kitchen table. A live work would be where customers come and they it's a professional environment versus entering somebody's home. And so,
but does it say that in what you just read to me?
Probably not. that requires customers, clients, and/or patrons to visit the unit.
But couldn't a customer visit a unit with a kitchen? I mean, you see where we're going with this. It seems nearly impossible to distinguish if, I mean, I could, let's say, game the system, if you will, or not necessarily game the system, just say it's live work, and you tell me why it's not.
We have told them it is not because there's no business features built into these units. It's just a residential unit that.
Okay, but let's go back to the code there and what business feature is required.
What's your business?
They're recruiting the businesses because they don't have a business right now. So just like I built a shopping center with no tenants, I'm going to look to recruit them.
Okay. In that scenario, do you have tenant spaces ironed out that might be flexible? Some might want more, some might want less.
For live work, it would be flexible.
Well, in your shopping center scenario, you'd have areas designated for the business, correct? They don't have anything designated for the business. It's strictly if a barber wanted to go in, well, you'd have to get rid of the living room to set up a space for the barber chair.
But I'm going to recruit a whole row of therapists.
Okay.
That's my hope. Now what?
What equipment do you need as a therapist?
A couple of chairs.
Okay.
Might want to give them something to drink.
Are these the same chairs that you're going to watch?
Might even feed them if it's a long session, so I need a kitchen.
Typically, businesses require some sort of specialized equipment. Therapy chairs, I don't know, I don't go to a therapist, but I'm imagining it's not the same style of chair that I'm going to watch the Tennessee football on Saturday afternoon. There's no, to make it real.
You see the ambiguity of it?
Sure, there is. And I would expect my staff to look and say, okay, there's an area in the front that's not dedicated towards the residents, that they're going to dedicate towards the business. It's still integrated within the unit.
Could I interject with
Sure, go ahead
a
there.
thought on
Commissioner Higgins?
exchange? So when that determination is made by plans review, if the development team disagrees, they can make an appeal and say that this living room is designed for live work.
That's a true statement.
There's a process for disagreeing with that interpretation if they so choose. I think the way that I've always understood live work is that there is enough space to have a workspace as well as your living space. And that could be completely separated except through a hallway, or maybe there's more open connection, or maybe a wall or something. But I think that if it looks like all of the other units in the building, then that probably gives them a lot of reason to say, how is this different than all of the other units in the building? So obviously we can't pick this apart or look at the design and try to make that determination. But I think that if the applicant is presenting something and plans review says we don't see this as live work, then there's a process for them to either make adjustments or make an appeal to that. So,
Commissioner Smith.
Well, and as you were sitting here going through it, again, I don't even know that 30 days would be enough to remove all the ambiguity of what I've just heard. My concern is where you're going with your question, what the code says versus how you're interpreting it is left up to an individual to reinterpret what's there. There's no firm understanding of what everybody would have to. And the reason I say that, if we go with a therapist, okay, are they doing EMDR? If it's EMDR therapy, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, it's literally just a little unit with lights that the therapist have to have and a chair. If this is trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, something different that they would need. But none of that's going to be shown up on plans or in the code. because is that something we're trying to get so prescriptive in? So I think what the gentleman talked about, which is as long as we've got the ability later on to come back to retro this to storefronts, if the market were so to go there, live work, it's not clearly defined. It's not clearly defined in the code, so now we're interpreting what we want it to be into the code, which in my opinion becomes very dangerous. So all that being said, I'm now leaning the other direction of, I think that this would be, based on all the contents, parking garage on one side, back of a theater on another, parking garage. There's already nobody down there. So if you can bring some people, Marble Alley, a great example, and set it up so that down the road, if the market were to change, that you could convert it to full-on commercial space, I think that is achieving what, Commissioner Higgins is talking about with the 24-hour city, but we're not there yet. So how do we make sure that when that time does come, it's easily convertible without having to tear down and start over? So I know I just talked in circles there because I feel like this whole thing is going down a drain, and we're all just caught in it right this second. But just listening to it, I have great concern that what the code says versus the interpretation of code are not matching up right this second. That's just got me with some great concern, because now it's individual personal preferences over written policy.
Thank you, and I think, all these comments are worthy comments. We've got a light load today, so let's have good discussion. So, Commissioner Adams.
I do think it's a really good discussion. Like, I'm learning a lot, and it's interesting to see where people's perspectives are on this. It's interesting to hear plans reviews concepts of what live work could be, because, and your example, because I think work has really changed a lot since that interpretation. Like, we're over here brainstorming about the different kinds of work that we are familiar with, that kind of layout would work just fine. There would be absolutely no issue with it, and you wouldn't need to have super special equipment or any kind of layout that's different than what we've heard described to us today. So I feel like, well, yes, there's a lot of ambiguity in that live work. It may be there, that ambiguity may be there to speak to, like, things are changing rapidly and work does not look like a traditional office building that requires so many seats and, so much special equipment. So that's the interesting academic part of this conversation, but there's a case in front of us, and I really want something to be developed there. I don't feel like someone said there are no people down there, and that's not true. There are people down there. Our downtown is going gangbusters. It's really wonderful. And I wouldn't even agree with the assessment of that being a C street. It's one street off of the high A street, and I see so much potential there, even with the challenges of a substation and these sort of dead zones of other parking lots. There's so much potential there. So I don't want to lock any of that potential out. And that's why I think I keep thinking if we could just wait a little bit, I don't know if 30 days is the magic amount, but just to have a little more conversation to not shut down what seems to be a project that's still getting figured out. So I would be more inclined to have a brief postponement just to get a little more conversation had, rather than just shut things down.
I always ask the question, what would you know in 30 days that you may not know today? Because we got Mr.
I do not
Aaron's
know what
here.
I do not know. But I will know.
Okay, but we have Mr. Aaron's here who I think answered some of the questions, but I respect that comment. Commissioner Huber.
I think Commissioner Higgins had his light on before me.
We'll go ahead and hear from you.
Okay. I was wondering almost, and we're kind of getting off the subject a little bit about the zoning and talking about, the use in there. And I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Goss or the architect, but, to Commissioner Smith, you're saying, okay, a commercial later, residential now. Is there a way, or is there a threshold maybe that could be met to satisfy a city, some design on that main level, if it's just, one wall up and say, okay, well, this is the area that the business will be done, and it's on the plans, it's acceptable, and a designated area that you were going for that could have the flexibility also. If it doesn't work, it can be the residential side. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's kind of what I was alluding to. We would look for some area that's dedicated to the business.
Yeah, and Mr. Goss, if there's room on that main level, I mean, from an architectural standpoint, just on those main floors, is that something you guys could do?
Okay, so I touched on it briefly, but one of the things that we are also doing is we're doing shared suite offices. Right, so I don't know if you've seen the plan, but on the corner is a space ideal for a coffee shop or a cafe or a wine bar or whatever it is. Adjacent to that is our leasing, office, and then we have clubhouse and fitness and the things that, again, activate the street, people coming and going. Adjacent to that is a shared suite office entrance. And then we're doing offices that you can rent a single office around behind where the residential units are, these live works that we're talking about, and a shared conference room and business center. So I understand what, Mr. Aarons is saying about, hey, listen, these units really look like shotgun residential units. Well, they look like the units of Marble Alley Lofts. But again, we've done the accommodation that they can be converted. And as I just mentioned, there are also these other spaces that are built into the plan for those kinds of meetings. Business today is completely different. Yes, somebody with a therapy business could open up shop there, but somebody with a graphic design business could open up shop there, right? And they could use the shared suite. They could say, listen, we also want to have this as an option for us. Or you can do as I did when I was a young architect, and I can meet in my living room, right? That's just the nature of that kind of service business. And while we think of commercial and retail being, hey, Market Square, where there's a shop, right? And there's a place where you can go in and buy candies or a new hat or whatever it is, that's not appropriate for every location. All we can do is set up to make it appropriate whenever that market comes. But there are spaces within this property, Commissioner Huber, I think, to addressing your question, for those other kind of meeting spaces if these are occupied by architects, graphic designers, therapists, whomever.
Right. No, and I haven't seen the plans for the record. I have no idea, but I guess I'm just trying to help. I mean, it's almost like we're saying, can it be designed as residential and then be converted to commercial later? What I was suggesting is almost the opposite of that. Could it be designed as commercial and converted to residential? Probably pretty quickly. If we say, okay, live, work, and it's just to me, it's almost checking a box.
I understand what you're saying. The construction prices are through the roof and they're not coming back anytime soon. The cost of money is through the roof and it's not coming back soon. So being able to underwrite commercial as a potential income source today on that street is not an option. So that's why we've chosen to do it the way we've done it. Mm-hmm. Something that we know we can underwrite, we could price, and get funding for the deal. And I'm going to tell you this, we're expecting to at least put up 40% equity on this deal, not the old 20%. It's a lot of cash that we're putting out. This is a $52 million deal.
I'm going to rein us back in just a little bit. I might have been the cause of this whole thing anyway.
Thank you.
So remember, this is about a zoning, not about the economics. So let's continue on. Commissioner Higgins?
Thank you. I want to clarify my suggestion of potentially postponing is more in thinking to give them the opportunity to reassess the live work scenario and hopefully withdraw because I don't see I don't one thing I really don't like when it comes to urban planning is the idea of it's not therefore it can't be. And so to say that there's currently not storefronts on that street therefore there can't be is the kind of thinking that prohibits a lot of growth. There's a lot of parking over there. A lot of visitors come to Knoxville, come downtown, and park in that area, and then have to walk through that area. I've been a downtown resident for about a decade now, and I've walked and ran all of these streets multiple times, and seen how they've changed and seen what happens. And really, I think that the intent behind the DKG zoning to require ground floor commercial of some sort is for the growth of the city. It is, and whether that is just an office that has one person working in it and they're not going out and it doesn't have to be retail. It just needs to be a mix of uses. And so I have nothing against the live work. I think that it's pretty easy to make it work. You just make the unit a little bit bigger and have a dedicated area for work. And then you at least that you can underwrite it as residential in that process. And so, I think that there's a clear path there. And again, not to try to harp on the use that the specific the applicant wants to do here, but to talk about the intent of this zoning and whether it's appropriate or not for us to change this. This is not, it doesn't meet the criteria for DKB. And to change it so that they can have ground floor residential, I mean, let's just change it to IMU or RN7. Let's just pick a zoning that allows for that. So the DKG zoning is intentionally placed, and I back to the comment about setting a precedent. Obviously, I don't think that everyone that has property in the DKG is going to start requesting rezoning so they can put residential on the ground floor. But I do think that there are still a lot of unactivated large parcels. There was a mention of buying the parking garage across the street, maybe. Great, let's put some retail down there and activate all of State Street. So, I think that it's not a good direction for downtown for us to be moving to making rezonings like this. And I think that the DKG is the most appropriate here. So I still can't agree with this.
Can I make a...
Mr. Reynolds.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to point out that it's not just the zoning district that you have to be concerned with, but the zoning district also then leads to what the design guidelines recommend. And the guidelines really don't lend themselves to this area at all either. It talks again about buildings that are set back, and it has less discussion about bringing the building forward. They have a project they've already designed, so I'm not expecting a rezoning would change the design of their structure to any significant amount. But it does have more impact than just a rezoning to allow residential. It does also impact other things like the design guidelines and how we would review a project as it comes to the design review board. There's also two different paths for non-residential use within a residential structure. One is the live work that we've talked about, which is more of a hybrid commercial residential space than a true residence itself. The other is home occupation within a residential dwelling unit. And that's not limited to just residences within a neighborhood that's zoned, a residential zone. That just says use or activity carried out for economic gain by a resident conducted as an accessory use in a residence dwelling unit. So it could be an upper floor unit in the same building. They could do home occupation, but you're talking about a therapist, that kind of thing. That's a home occupation. You could do that in any residential unit. The only thing you can't do is change the exterior of your residential unit to look commercial. You can't have more traffic to your residential unit than a typical residential unit would have. You can still have up to 3 outside employees come to your residence and work there. So when we talk about having non-residential uses within a residence, think about in that term, a typical non-residential use within a house that no one would know is there is a home occupation. Something that's obviously more intended for a commercial use where people interact more with that dwelling. That's more of a live workspace. So we're talking about an artist who has a studio, like an art gallery. there. So people come there and buy their artwork, and so they have more of a storefront type space, but they live in the back.
Commissioner Barger.
Just a quick question, and I don't know if this is for planning staff or for the developer. Are the downstairs units or the floor units 1 or 2 bedrooms or more? I haven't seen the design plan, so I apologize. They're a single bedroom, and with code, do they have to have an outside entrance? Like on the street? I'm just asking. I literally have no idea.
That zoning actually requires exterior entrances at so many feet along the facade, so yes, they do.
Okay, so each downstairs unit would have an outside entrance.
It also has an interior access as well, so.
Okay.
So I know this has gotten very long.
Hang on,
Okay.
would anyone like to address Mr. Busby? Commissioner Shelso?
Okay, I've been thinking about a test about live work. If you walk up to it, do you feel like you're creeping into someone's window that lives there, or do you feel like you're looking into a space that would welcome you and say, yes, come in, let's conduct some sort of business? And that's not the ultimate test, but I think that's the intent of why this is codified, to not have residential in a downtown area, because we want to continue to activate it. And so that's why I don't think it fits to rezone. So do we have a motion on the floor? I mean, there's a
I think
suggestion.
we have a motion second, don't we? Ms. Karen, do we have a motion? Oh, we don't?
No.
Okay.
There's not been a motion. I think I heard someone make a second, but I don't think there was ever a motion. So we need to be clear on the record, please.
Okay.
I suggested it, postponement, but I don't think.
So I'm just going to go ahead and make the motion to deny per staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to deny per staff recommendation by Commissioner Shelso, seconded by Commissioner Higgins. We still have more lines. Commissioner Smith.
So this is the only thing I'm going to ask. 2 things. One, this is to Mr. Ahrens. When you said that you would look for something to figure out whether or not it was true live work, I want somebody to eventually define something, because right now that's very ambiguous of what you're looking for. I think just having some very clear, what's that something you would be looking for that would say this is true live work? The second thing is, if this motion succeeds, is live work allowed under the DKG as it would be proposed right now for this development?
You mean based on the plan that was submitted to our office?
Did you mean G or do you mean the B?
It's currently DKG.
G, right.
Yeah, under DK, if nothing changes today, is live work allowed in
Live
that
work
space?
is allowed. What they proposed, we determined was not live work.
And again, that's where I want you to go back and define what that something is, so that they have a better understanding of what would be needed. Because right now, I've not heard any definitive, here's what we need. It's just a lot of interpretation.
We need space dedicated for the business, because otherwise it becomes a home occupation where you're walking into somebody's house.
And I get that, but is that the developer, or is that me as the person who's going to own it? Because they're building out the space. I could come in and put 3 desks in the space that's now true live work, but that has nothing to do with the person building the space. So that's why I'm saying I need a definition of something to help guide this, because there's just too much ambiguity in that right this second of what falls on the developer and what falls on me when I'm purchasing that space to use.
I think that goes back to what Mr. Hill was talking about with his shopping center. He's got tenant spaces that are vacant that he's going to go and solicit tenants. So if we looked at a plan and we saw the vacant tenant space that was separate from the dwelling unit, we would be like, you're good to go. But what was presented to us was not that. It was walking into somebody's kitchen and living room. And I know that you can run a business out of your kitchen and living room, but that, as the zoning and, what is my title? in this.
We've been here long enough.
I'm the zoning administrator at this point. I would interpret walking into somebody's kitchen and living room as being a home occupation versus walking into a space that is empty, but it's dedicated for the business and it's separate from the residents.
And I get that. And my concern is that's how you would interpret it. If I lined 10 people up, I could have 12 different opinions. So that's why it's just, I'm looking for something more definitive, because this is something we're going to continue. I think it goes back to precedence. I want to make sure that we do this right so that we're not having this, but right now, it's too much ambiguity in the whole thing for anybody to say this is what it needs to look like going forward. So that's why I'm saying I need somebody to define something.
We will create a policy and put it on the web.
I'm just going to say, I think about so many examples, like lovely brownstones, obviously a residential neighborhood with a little shingle hanging outside. And you know you're allowed to go into that space is a law office or a design agency or whatever. But you may be walking into someone's living room, because that may be where they're doing it. But they've got a shingle, and it's obviously a commercial sort of setup. And that's how I see that this block could really work. And it seems like that is a live-work example, but it seems like there's some friction between the review and where it is at the moment.
All right, we've got a motion to deny and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Let's do a roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Uten?
Aye.
Commissioner Boyer?
No.
Commissioner Huber?
No.
Commissioner Scelto?
Aye.
Commissioner Perez?
Aye.
Commissioner Browning?
No.
Commissioner Higgins?
Aye.
Commissioner Levinson?
No.
Commissioner Biggs?
Aye.
Commissioner Barber?
No.
Commissioner Adams? Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Midas?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
No.
I have 8-6. 8 noes, 6 yes.
Okay, so that motion fails. And Chair will entertain any other motion or discussion. Okay,
So
Commissioner Smith.
I'm going to make a motion that we postpone for 30 days because I really would like to get better clarification before we do anything else to have something defined.
I don't think you're going to get any more than what he's already given you.
Well, he said they would write a policy and put it.
Is that right?
You're going to write a policy that says exactly what you said, right?
I'm going to confer with my legal counsel and create a policy that is very clear.
As an attorney and as a legal counsel, I know when my business comes to me what exactly it is they're wanting me to write. So I'm not sure 30 days is going to give us that, but I do like discussion. I like clarity, and I do like to be able to rely on code, and precedence does matter. But
Well, in 30 days is just what we're recommending. It doesn't mean that in 30 days the applicant couldn't ask for a further delay while they go back and fix some stuff. Right now, we're just delaying anything for 30 days for us.
okay.
Okay, I started out encouraging discussion. I'm not sure I'm still on the same.
So that was a motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to what? Okay, we have a motion to postpone for 30 days.
I'll second that.
Did I hear a second?
Yes.
So a second by Commissioner Higgins.
And I also would like to say that, because I thought about asking staff about this earlier, but there are implications with these zonings and how the design standards for the DRB are written. So I think that if we're going to postpone, it might be helpful if you all were able to give us a little bit of a bullet point list or something, summary, just so we all know why DKB only exists on boulevards and has different standards than DKG everywhere else. Thanks.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is that right? Seeing no more discussion. So we're voting on to postpone for 30 days. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, I think I heard 3 no's. Did you get those, Ms. Karen?
I did not. Could you raise your hands, please? The nose? Okay. Boyer, Browning.
Four no's. Did you get
Boyer,
that?
Browning, Smith.
Ms. Barger?
Thank you.
All right.
That would be 10-4.
Ms. Karen, did you get that?
Yeah, I would have motion carried 10-4. No Boyer, Browning, Smith, and Barger.
I tell you, I want to give credit to whomever worked on these microphones. I don't know if you've noticed the difference or not, but you can stand a foot away from them now. You don't have to swallow them to be heard, so.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 14. Is that right? 14, is that where we are? Okay. This is going to require two motions. The applicant is Patrick Hunt. Location, east side of Island Home Pike, west of Mission Road, 1.37 acres. Present plan designation zoning is ag, hillside protection, agricultural. Proposed designation zoning is low-density residential, hillside protection, planned residential. Existing land use, single-family residential. Density proposed, 5 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, deny the sector plan amendment to the LDR land use classification because it does not meet the land use location criteria. Motion number 2, deny the planned residential zone because it is inconsistent with surrounding development and sector plan. And I see the applicant is available. Do we have any opposition? We do have opposition. Okay. Would you like to proceed or defer? You can do either one as the applicant.
Well, given your instructions not to repeat anything submitted to the public record previously, I'll defer.
Okay.
Because my
All right.
comments were
All right.
already.
And would you like to come up and state your name and address, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara McDaniel. I live across the street from this property. It's agricultural right now. We have a small farm there. I'm just wondering if it's rezoned, is it rezoned for the whole area or just that property?
Just that property.
Okay. And is this going to be rental homes or is it going to be sold to individuals?
So we haven't made a final determination on whether they'll be rental homes or sold.
Okay, if you did you state your name and address, Mr.
I'm
Hunt?
sorry, Patrick Hunt, 603 Kennesaw Avenue. I'm the owner of 4424 Island Home Pike and the applicant for rezoning.
Ma'am,
are you finished with your comments?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to verify whether we're getting rental houses in this. The area here is long-term homeowners. There's, a lot of farmland.
Could we clarify that
So,
that's outside of the scope of our discussion?
It certainly is. So, yeah. All right. The applicant may proceed.
So hi again, I'm Patrick Hunt. I think I covered everything I really wanted to cover in the public comment that I made, maybe even a little too much. But I would love to entertain any questions that you have about the intended use in the rezoning application.
Bear with me just a minute. I'm going to get to this one.
And if you don't have any questions, I'd be happy to read my prepared remarks.
I saw this as being a bit of a unique case here, but let's go to commission here. Commissioner Perez.
I was just curious. There's a few cases that follow 15 and 17 that say that PR is not appropriate for that size lot, and I wanted to confirm what the appropriate lot size is for PR zoning and why the applicant was encouraged to apply for PR.
Ms. Hillman?
Sure. So based on the concept that Mr. Hunt had, PR seemed like the the most reasonable path forward with any rezoning conversation. And I'm sorry if there was confusion on that. We make it clear that there is no sure bet on a rezoning, and it's something we discuss internally as a team. But in terms of what he was looking to do, PR made the most sense as a request. And then with regards to parcel size, I don't know that there is an explicit, well, there isn't an explicit, minimum lot size, but considering the periphery boundary, which is 35 feet standard, we look at practical considerations like that when it comes to what's buildable in terms of the intent of the PR zone.
Okay, and one more question. Further cases encourage RA or low-density residential instead of a hard denial, and I was wondering why that wasn't an approved recommendation for this case.
Sure. So so that would require, low-density residential as a land use to be approved, which we did not recommend approval for based on the location criteria, and also breaking up that large swath of agricultural land use. But the RA zone is also doesn't allow for that flexibility in locating dwelling units in consideration of environmental factors, and considering the steep slopes on this parcel, I don't know that RA would really be appropriate either. So PR, takes into account environmental considerations like that.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too have just a little bit of a question as to why this shouldn't be considered at least somewhat. I'm not advocating yet until I get some more clarity, but as I look at this thing, it's on a minor collector, number one. In the staff notes, it says there's no sewer anywhere near this thing, but it also says that it's in the Knox Chapman Water and the KUB Sewer District. So I'm curious as to which it is. Is it a sewer source KUB or not?
Mr. Hunt can speak to that more accurately, but it is the parcel's divided by those districts, so it's a little unclear which one would be the provider. I believe in his notes he commented on having an agreement with both districts that KUB could extend service to this parcel, and that's something he can speak to. But in terms of the conditions that we can see in the maps and the existing conditions, there is not currently sewer at this site.
Yeah, so if I could clarify, when I brought the property.
Hey, Mr. Hunt.
I'm sorry.
I know, I'm sorry to explain this, but I need to explain it because you guys will think I'm just out here being arbitrary, but once it goes to commission, there's no mechanism to get you back involved in the conversation unless you're addressed by one of the commissioners.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was addressed by Jesse, and I thought that was a
Were you
option to
direct?
respond.
Okay, I'm sorry. Then I'm in error.
Sure.
Please proceed.
So when I bought the property in 2019, one of the first things I did was meet with KUB's new business team. They visited the site. They contacted Knox Chapman Utility District, and the two of them agreed that KUB, at my expense, would run sewer to the property, and that they would have dual service provision in the area, which is apparently unusual, that Knox Chapman would continue to provide water service to the property in the same area that they do today, but that KUB would provide sewer.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I guess to continue my thought here, if we're on a minor collector, if we do have access to sewer, which the staff note says that there's nothing near it, but it sounds like there could be accommodations with it. And if staff was going down a path of trying to get away from the hillside piece and consolidate the area where you'd put the units would make sense to me. And the other thing, I'm not much of a golfer, but I think you probably hit a sand wedge and hit the city limit line. So for it to be not necessarily close to LDR, which you can see on the map, and close to a city limit line on a minor collector with sewer access, this is something where I would think that we would consider the LDR. So, but I'll wait for my other members here to chime in.
Commissioner Adams.
I really appreciate Commissioner Uden walking through those, because I see this as one of those things that I think is happening more and more often, particularly in South Knoxville, because we've got the urban wilderness and a lot of growth happening that is causing us to think about things differently and engage with different development ideas that we haven't necessarily seen before. So when we get some of these more innovative projects, we're tasked with trying to figure out, okay, how can we make something work here? So I thank you, Commissioner Uden, for sort of walking that down. I hope that we can figure something out, because to me it seems like it's not a giant risk. It's a very small parcel of land, and we've got an applicant that's trying to do some due diligence at the outset to make some things work with the sewer system and that sort of thing.
I agree with you, and I'd like to just call your attention to where it says in here under the comments, an obvious or significant error or omission in the plan is one of the requirements, and it goes on to say it is noteworthy that the subject property's land use classification of ag does not align with its location in the urban growth area of the growth policy plan. And then it goes on to say the intent of the urban growth boundary designation includes encouraging a reasonably compact pattern of development and offering a wide range of housing options. And then if you slide down about another sentence, sector plan goes on to say that the agricultural land uses are generally not recommended in the county's planned growth area. So I think we've got kind of an imperfect situation. We might not be able to apply a completely perfect solution. It might require an imperfect solution for an imperfect problem that we have here. So I would just ask you to consider that as we continue our discussion. Vice Chair Uden, do you have a comment?
Well, I wanted to make sure I listened to Commissioner Adams before I did anything. I want to make sure that I didn't cut her off. But hearing what she said, and I think what she said was absolutely appropriate, I would make a recommendation that we approve the LDR sector plan request.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the sector plan to LDR, land use classification, by Vice Chair Uden, seconded by Commissioner Adams. And let's give me some rationale.
Access to sewer and trends in development.
Okay. Let us digest that for just a second here. Would you?
I was going to say the build out of the urban wilderness park and trail system is an amenity.
So changing conditions. Yes,
Yeah.
significant change in conditions that would align with the criteria that we have to use.
Okay, is that what we got? Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. This is to approve the land use classification LDR. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this is going to require another motion. Chair will entertain another motion if so desired.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the PR planned residential zone at the requested 1 to 5 per the acre.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the planned residential zone up to 5 dwelling units per acre by Vice Chair Uden, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Is that right? Was it Commissioner? Commissioner, okay. Okay. Commissioner Perez, seconded. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
On to item number 15. Rick Harbin is the applicant. Location, northeast side of Rio Grande Road, northwest of West Emory Road, 1.61 acres. Present zoning, agricultural. Zoning requested, planned residential, existing land use, single-family residential. Density proposed, 5 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, approve the RA, low-density residential zone, because it is consistent with the sector plan and surrounding development. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
If you'll please state your name and address.
David Harbin, 4334 Paper Mill Drive here in Knoxville.
Thank you. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, you may proceed.
We are in agreement with the staff recommendation of RA zoning and urge your approval.
All right. Commission?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve RA zoning per staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Uten, seconded by Commissioner Huber to approve per staff recommendation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
All right. On to agenda item 16, applicant Alex Bodazet. Location, north side of Millertown Pike, west of Mary Emily Lane. Approximate size of tract, 45.04 acres. Present zoning, RA, RB, and agricultural. Zoning requested, planned residential. Existing land use, rural residential, agricultural, forestry, vacant land, single-family residential. Density proposed up to 5 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, approve planned residential, zone up to 2.75 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with the sector plan and surrounding development, subject to one condition. All right. The applicant is present. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, you may proceed.
Yes, once again, we are also in agreement with staff recommendations on this and also urge your approval.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
I just want to go on the record as saying this is near my neighborhood on a very busy street, and I'm not opposed to this.
Okay. All right. Vice Chair Uten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion, we approve the PR planned residential zone per staff recommendation.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Uten, seconded by Commissioner Boyer to approve per staff recommendation,
And
subject to that noted one condition.
Yes, thank you.
All right. We have a light still on, Commissioner Smith?
Oh, no.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Agenda item 17, the applicant Randall J. Sparks, location west side of Georgia Light Road, east of Pellissippi Parkway, 0.94 acres, present zoning, agricultural, technology overlay. Zoning requested, planned residential, technology overlay. Existing land use, single-family residential. Density proposed up to 3.5 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, approve LDR, RA, low-density residential zone because it is consistent with the sector plan and consistent with the surrounding development. Technology overlay will be retained. Is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. If you'll state your name and address, please.
Jason Sparks, or Randall Jason Sparks at 640 Hillview Lane, Jefferson City, Tennessee.
Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, you may proceed. Mr. Sparks, would you like to say anything?
Not in particular, just that we want to build some residential houses there, single-family dwellings, and just help Knoxville with, the amount of people that we have moving there, and that's about it.
Thank you. Commissioner Huber.
I guess this is a question for the applicant, but if I'm not mistaken, this is the same situation before where the staff is recommending RA versus your planned residential request. Is that something that you're comfortable with?
Yeah, that's fine. I understand. I spoke with a lady earlier a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, and she explained basically because it was septic, and I understand that.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
Yeah, well, with that saying, I'd like to make a motion to approve the RA zone because it is consistent with the sector plan and consistent with the surrounding development. The TO technology overlay will remain.
All right, so we have a motion to approve per staff recommendation by Commissioner Huber, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Is that correct, or was it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Agenda item 18, applicant Parker Bartholomew. Location north of Ball Road and east side of Zion Lane. Size of tract, 3.26 acres. Present zoning, agricultural. Zoning requested, planned residential. Existing land use, multifamily residential. Density proposed, 5 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, approve the planned residential zone with up to 4.5 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with the Northwest County Sector Plan and surrounding development. And the applicant is present. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, you may proceed, Mr. Bartholomew, with your name and address, please.
All right, Parker Bartholomew, 1218 North Central Street, Board Chair for Angelic Ministries. Seeing no opposition, I think it's just going to be a simple math request today. 4.91 gets us to 16 units. Staff had recommended 4.5, so 4.91 would get us 16 units. It's a difference of 1.3 units. So
you're requesting?
I'd request 4.91 per acre.
Right. Commission? Commissioner Shelso.
As I inquired Tuesday about the adjacent property that can go potentially up to 12 units an acre, I think 4.91 would be accommodating, so I will make a motion to approve PR up to 4.91.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Shelso to approve up to 4.91 dwelling units per acre, seconded by Commissioner Huber. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 21, the applicant S&E Properties. Location west side of Fretz Road, southwest of North Campbell Station Road. Approximate size of tract, 12.89 acres. Present zoning, agricultural. Zoning requested, planned residential. Existing land use, rural residential. Density proposed, 4.5 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, approve the planned residential zone up to 4.5 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with changing conditions and surrounding development. I see the applicant representative is present. If you'll state your name and address, please.
Yes, Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street.
Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, you may proceed.
Thank you. This was before you a few months ago on 5 units an acre. It was unanimously approved at that time. The sector plan has since been amended. It's now LDR. The 4.5 is consistent with the low-density residential. I know there was some comments posted online with some concerns about traffic and stormwater. I know there's plans ongoing. I think the county's in the process of acquiring some right-of-way to be able to improve the intersection between Fretz and Campbell Station. And the timeline for that is that it should be completed hopefully the fall of 2024. But we appreciate staff's recommendation for 4.5, and we'd ask that you approve.
Commission?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the PR planned residential zone up to 4.5 to use per the acre per staff recommendation.
Second.
So we've got a motion to approve per staff recommendation by Vice Chair Uten, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 22, applicant Edelmary Martinez. Location, north and east sides of Brown Mountain Loop Road, east of Compton Lane. Tract size 1.08 acres, 1.08 acres. Present plan designation and zoning is agricultural. Proposed plan designation and zoning, rural residential and planned residential. Existing land use, agricultural, forestry, vacant land. Density proposed up to 2 dwelling units per acre. This is going to require 2 motions. Staff recommendation, deny the sector plan amendment to rural residential because it does not meet the criteria for a sector plan amendment. And the second motion is to deny the planned residential zone because it is not consistent with the South County sector plan, and it would allow development that may be out of character with the surrounding area. Is the applicant present?
Representative of the applicant.
Okay. If you'll state your name and address, please.
My name is Andrew Henley, 304 Hermitage Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37920.
All right. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, you may proceed.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners. I'm speaking on behalf of Edelmary Martinez, my partner and the property owner. Neither of us are great at public speaking. She would have preferred to be here personally, but unfortunately had to work, so I drew the short straw. I'd like to begin by correcting a small error on the plan amendment and rezoning report on page 1. I may be misunderstanding what it's meant to imply, but on the sewer source, it's listed as Knoxville Utilities Board. There's currently no sewer source adjacent to that property within 140 feet in either direction. The lot is less than a mile from Chapman Highway in a neighborhood, a relatively small neighborhood you can see there on the map. The properties that are nearby, adjacent, are all fairly old. I think most of them were built in the 1950s, and you can see from the map the lots are on average about a half an acre, which was in line with the sector plan at that time, I believe. It was 1/2 acre would allow for 1 density unit. This lot is 1.08 acres and is currently zoned ag, as you've already stated. There's also a few in the neighborhood that I clocked at about 0.48 acres. You know, it's right around there, but the vast majority of them are just about a half an acre. I'd also like to point out that there's a property address listed as 507 Brown Mountain Loop Road, but there is no structure on this property of any kind as it stands currently. We had actually planned to build a home and move there ourselves. Unfortunately, that proved implausible due to some issues with the soil. So what we're planning on doing is we want to make it a buildable lot. After purchasing the property, we soon realized it was not feasible to build there as it stands due to the fact that it cannot be approved for traditional septic system like the other houses in the neighborhood have. We now have to divide the lot into 2 half-acre lots, as well as finance a project to extend the KUB sewer line to the property, thereby making it into 2 buildable lots that are more in line with the current character of the neighborhood. As you can see, all the lots, or most of the lots in that area, are about that size. We would be doing the sewer extension at our own cost. Based on our estimates from what we've had conversations with KUB, we anticipate it costing just in the neighborhood of $42,000, which simply isn't feasible for us to do it if we can only potentially build 1 house there. But if the lot were split into 2 half-acre lots, again, in line with the character of the neighborhood, that project becomes much more feasible, and we could get that done. I'd also like to point out to that end that there are plenty of properties in this neighborhood that were built at around the same time, and frankly, the soil mapping is probably going to look pretty similar. So a lot of the properties that currently have septic wouldn't have been approved if they had applied today, like they were in 1955. So what we're really asking is to allow us to get in line with the neighborhood as it exists currently. As I understand, there are 4 conditions that must be met in order for that to be true. The proposed amendment shall be necessary because of substantially changed or changing conditions in the area, in districts affected, or in the county generally. As was already stated in the report, there have been few significant changes to this area recently. However, there have been pretty drastic changes to the county generally. especially in the South. I personally lived in South Knoxville for about 10 years, and I never imagined we'd have a Starbucks, but here we are. So the county's kind of changing around this area. As a result of the increased housing prices and as well as the need for housing in general, South Knoxville is experiencing a population increase. This change in the landscape to the county generally reveals a need for both new construction and buildable lots. By allowing this relatively simple change to the zoning of this lot, you would simultaneously open up space for Knoxvillians to own a home and allow us to bring KUB sewer to the area, which will allow other homeowners who are already there to access it if they so choose. The proposed amendment shall not adversely affect any other part of the county, nor shall any direct or indirect adverse effects result from such amendment. Again, as was already mentioned in this report, all the other lots in the neighborhood, with few exceptions, are already about half an acre. That would make them legal non-conforming lots, I believe is the definition. Our proposed amendment would in no way adversely affect the surrounding properties and would in fact bring the lot more in line with the existing reality of the area. The proposed amendment shall be consistent with and not conflict with the general plan of Knoxville, Knox County, including any of its elements, major road plans, land or use plans, community facilities plan, and others. Through my research, I couldn't identify any such plans.
Mr. Henley, if you'll wrap up, you're out of time.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's most of it.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commission?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir. Vice Chair Uden?
Yeah, thank you. I think this one, to me, is a little bit of a different pendulum swing as the one that we just dealt with a little while ago. This is on a terminus of a small 12-foot road and very agricultural in nature, and I think staff got this one right, personally. I'll wait if anybody else has any other comments, but
Looks like I don't see any other lights.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the sector plan amendment to rural residential because it doesn't meet the criteria.
Second.
Commissioner Higgins, do we have a second? Oh, Commissioner Midas? Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second to deny per staff recommendation, and we have Commissioner Higgins.
Thank you. I don't completely disagree, but I do think contextually with the city slightly to north there, city limits and the way that's developed, I do think that there's some contextual similarities. But a bigger concern is something that the applicant mentioned regarding the ability to actually build on the lot with the septic. So did beyond, I don't think I saw it in the staff report, but with the sewer versus septic, is there any considerations that could be made with their request in regards to the feasibility of that? That's a question for staff.
Can you elaborate a little bit more in terms of condition? I'm not sure that I'm following your question.
The applicant said that they pursued building a house on the lot, but the soil tests failed for the septic system. And so in order to bring sewer to the site, there's a lot of things preventing that. Was that within is that possible to be within the consideration of, I guess, the realm of the appropriateness of this?
I don't think that's something that would change our recommendation, no.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to deny per staff recommendation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we deny the PR planned residential zone because it wouldn't be consistent with the sector plan.
Second.
So we've got a motion to deny planned residential zone by Vice Chair Uden per staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Midas. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 26. This will require 3 motions. Agenda item 26, Igor Shaban, Shad Road. Location northwest of Shad Road, southeast of Ball Road. Approximate acreage, 7.357 acres. That's an odd approximation. Planned residential, existing land use is agricultural, forestry, vacant land, proposed use, attached residential subdivision. Number of lots, 33. This will require 2 variances, 1 alternative design standard, and let's see what else we got. And then the staff recommendations for the 3 motions would be approve the variances and alternative design standard based on the justification provided by the applicant and recommendations of the Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works. Motion 2, approve the concept plan subject to the noted 7 conditions. And motion 3, approve the development plan for a residential subdivision with up to 33 attached houses on individual lots as shown on the plan, subject to the 3 conditions. And the applicant representative is standing before us.
Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street, here for Igor Shaban.
Do we have any opposition? Okay. Would you like to proceed or defer?
I'll defer, please.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name's James Setzer, 6140 Ball Road.
Mr. Setzer, you may proceed.
The picture you had up there before of the apartments or whatever they are, the houses, I've seen 2 plans. One of them, they got like an excess road because you got one road coming in from Shad Road. And then it's got going out here and the one like dead ends going toward Ball Road up toward the top. But then there's another plan that it's got the road going toward me on the east end. Which one of them is accurate? Because I looked on the the website thing and it showed both of them. One case plan and another one. And I just wondered, that's the other one. And I just wondered, what they planning on at dead ends of my property right there? They ain't planning on coming on my property with a road or something, are they? I just wanted to know that. And like I say, all that on my side over there, I got woods right there. So it is going to be blocking it, but are they going to interfere with any of my woods right there when they build it? Now, I don't know nothing about the buffer. I don't really know what they mean by a buffer because, I ain't never met the guy. Nobody's come to talk to me about nothing on. And
let's see if Mr. Reynolds can satisfy your questions here.
Thank you. The plan that we see on the screen is the most current version with the right-of-way going to the east towards your property. They will not be extending anything onto your property. They should not be grading onto your property or clearing anything on your property. It does allow for a connection if your property was ever to be developed, if you or somebody else did, then somebody could connect to that road, but it is there for future use, but it will not extend onto your property without.
And I just wondering, I know there's 2 creeks that come across there and join on my property. They did have come across, put the sewer line on me just to get to because they built a subdivision on this side before and now they're doing it over here. And when they dug it on me, they hit an underground spring right before they get to their property. That's leaking all over me now. So I don't know how that ground, it's always been soggy, out through there. And the way the creeks, I've seen the creeks up over 5 foot before, a big storm. I didn't know if all this, how it's going to affect the water coming on me and flooding me out. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Mr. Guard.
My name's Dan Guard, live at 3304 Lowberry Road. My family has lived out there for 68 years on that property. We run cattle on the property that they're wanting to develop now. So I'm very well of what that property is, and I've showed pictures of how wet that property gets, usually about 8 months out of the year. Right now, it's very, very dry, and so they've just now, in the last week, done their geo services water thing. So it's not nowhere close to accurate. I talked to my son that's 40. He said, I asked him, I said, have you ever seen that creek over there as dry as it is now? And he played in it as a child. He's 43. He said, I never remember it that low. So that's very wet property. The water comes down Low Betty Road, and with the new road construction and stuff, it's still coming across about the center of my property and runs toward the fence and finds its way into those creeks over there. You put 33 apartment buildings over there with 4 or 5 feet in between them, 10 feet, whatever, it's going to block the water flow from where it naturally goes into that creek that it's went for all my life. The road coming in on Shod Road, it's right-hand turn in, right-hand turn out with a medium out there. With, I think it's a 75-degree turn, which that would be coming in from the left-hand side of it. You come in and turn to the, going to the east and work your way down the property. So we've already had a delivery person out there that's lost his legs in the last 2 or 3 months because of all the subdivisions on the west side of Low Betty Road, that they said that they was not going to allow any building on Low Betty Road until the new road was complete. And that's in your minutes from previous meetings. I said something to Mike Reynolds about that the other day, and he wasn't aware that they had built any more property, houses on actually the Low Betty Road. He said it was contained to 30 houses in Caracade. It's already up to 32. The builder told me, he said, I can start 30 houses in Low Betty Landing, which is just across the hill, and there are already 80 families living in it, and the road's not finished. I was promised my driveway would be out for 30 days. It's been out for 18 months, and they still can't tell me what they're going to do with the water because it's going to come in my driveway. So there's too many things going on the properties out there. The Planning Commission says they want diversity out there. When we moved out there was 10 homes. Now there's thousands. There's a 1.5 miles from Low Betty Road to Oak Ridge Highway. There's thousands of houses, and they just keep on adding more and more. And now they're wanting to build apartments out there. We don't need any more diversity out there. We've had enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission. Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street. These aren't apartments, these are attached townhomes. So there's 33 of them on 7.357 acres. We have a stormwater engineer, Mr. Harvin. He's the one who did the layout. The stub out they were talking about, that was condition number 5. We had a stub out going to the north in our original plans, and Mr. Reynolds asked if we could instead find a stub out to the east. Of course, that's just a stub out. It can be there until the cows come home, as they say, or until that property's developed. If that property's never developed, then it's just a road to nowhere. But it was a condition for approval that staff placed, and we were able to accommodate that on our site plan. We're going to have to address any of the stormwater. We do know there's creeks there. There's a creek termination. There's stream buffers that we'll have to respect, and that's reflected on the plans that are before you right there. One of the conditions is that there be no building permits issued on this property until Shod Road is completed. And that's building permits. We could still grade, but we couldn't pull any building permits. I don't know what's going on with the other properties. I wasn't involved in those projects. The project before you now, though, the condition of approval is that no building permits be issued until Shod Road is completed. And of course, this is part of the Shod Road extension where our only access is onto Shod Road. We're not going to be accessing LaBetty or Ball directly. So all of the traffic generated from this is going to be handled by the new 4-lane median highway. Mr. Guard, I think he mentioned a little something about his trees, and the trees is something that, and the landscaping, the buffering, is something that is also conditioned for the development plan. And then that is on condition 3 for the approval of the development plan. It says, the existing healthy trees along these shared boundaries must be maintained and may count toward the required landscaping screening. And the landscaping screening that is recommended in condition 3 is a type C landscape screening. I've had some conversations with Mr. Reynolds about that condition and would like for this commission to consider making a slight modification for this reason. If you look at the plan that's in front of you, the southwest corner, we're going to have to do some grading and rerouting of some of the water that comes across the property line there, and it's going to get pretty close to that boundary. It is our intent, every developer would like to keep as many existing trees as possible because they would count towards their screening, and it's our intent to keep, there's a row of evergreen trees. I don't know if they're cedar, exactly what type of trees they are, but it's right along the property line. It's even hard to see it on that map because the yellow line kind of draws it right through where the trees are actually located on the west side of it. If you scroll up a little, between Mr. Guard's properties, I think he and his family own all the properties moving up there, most of them up on Labette Road. In the event that because of our grading, some of the roots get damaged or we have to take one of those trees down, what we would like to propose is that we replace that area with a type B landscape buffer, which is more intensive than the type C. We don't want to take any trees down. It's our intent to try to save them, but sometimes a tree does get damaged or injured along the way, and so we'd like to even increase the buffering above what staff has recommended for that screening to go to, at least in that area, if a tree is removed, make that a type B screening instead of a type C. So I would ask that modification for the development plan, condition number 3, be modified respectfully, and that ask that you approve this per staff's recommendation otherwise. Thank you very much.
Commission? Okay, Commissioner Huber.
Yeah, I guess I had a question probably for the civil engineer on it. I'm just looking because Mr. Garth, somebody had passed around, I guess, some photos of some drainage issues. Is that right? So where exactly are those compared? I guess it's actually
on the west boundary. The water will cross anywhere from the north boundary where your arrow's at, anywhere from there up into the first two cedar trees up the property. It crosses between the 2 cedar trees and works its way to the ditch line. So you're talking 300 foot.
Okay. And you had mentioned, I guess, before too, that there might be some runoff coming from Shad Road. Is that right? Coming towards your house?
Yeah, I've talked to the Blaylock, the guy that's over the project out there. He says, as of right now, he don't know what he's going to do with the water that runs down Labette Road. He said, I don't know. Every time right now, of course, I've got a temporary driveway, but every time I get a good rain, they have to come out and repair my driveway because it's washed it out. So, and I've seen water between the 2 cedar trees up at the top of the property, 4 to 6 feet wide where it rains hard and runs down through that field across into that creek. And it just crosses at various places through that fence. So if you're going to put up your apartment buildings, along the west side of that, where's the water going?
I think you might be ultimately dealing with 2 different issues. I maybe defer to Director Snowden about Shad Road, when it would be completed, and maybe some of that water is a little more controlled than it is when it's under construction.
It's not controlling it, and they're saying that the curbs on Labette, on the new portion of Labette where they widened it, on my property, that used to be a wagon trail,
right.
And over the years changed deeds, which all of them haven't been changed since 1948. But they allowed the subdivisions, the Caracade and the others, to come in there, widen the road on my property, and just said, I went to their meeting and they said, well, if you want to do anything about it, you just have to take it to court. And that's come from the engineering department.
Yeah. I
So
understand.
they pretty well do as they please.
So I guess too, though, where your house is situated, it's, if I'm reading this, this topography right, you're, just like Shod Road is above Ball Road, your property sits pretty
All
high.
downhill from there.
You're downhill
Like
from,
45 degrees that was supposed to be mowable. It was supposed to be under 30 degrees. They still can't tell you what the elevation is truly being. Even after they've done their grading work, they still don't know exactly what they're going to do. If according to Blaylock.
yeah, it sits below Shod Road. I mean, you're at an elevation about 1,072. Looks,
Pardon?
it looks like you might be at an elevation of 1,072, and then going down Low Betty Road, it goes down from you from there.
Yeah, it's all the way down to Ball Road.
So you're right. So you're above a lot of that, where that stream's coming through at the bottom. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
My house is above that stream at the very bottom. That stream kind of goes cat a corner from one corner of that property to the other.
And that's
about a third to half of the way up there, the property that they're wanting to develop.
Yeah. Okay.
Over there, about where you can see the tree line on the east side of the property. So it
Understood.
runs cat a corner across that property.
Yeah, and by looking at the plan, it does, as Mr. Mullins had pointed out, it looks like the civil engineer has taken into account the stream that's down through there and designed around that. You can see it, the stream buffers that are on either side of it to account for all that runoff down there. But again, I think you're kind of dealing with two different issues. Maybe a road that's under construction right now with the county might be coming down.
No, I'm saying even whether they had the new road, the new Shod Road or not, the water still comes down there, and some of it goes around the back to the east side of my property, around the back of the garage, and gets on the property they're wanting to build on. Some comes around the front, some comes down the driveway, and goes down the middle of my pasture field, and drains over into their property, into that creek at various places.
Gotcha.
Mr. Snowden, does your department have any comment about this?
I'm trying to get the plans pulled up to see where our catch basins and curb and gutter are. So just give me 1 second, please.
So I'd like to talk to Mr. Harbin then, I guess.
Your
briefly
curb
while he's
and gutter
at it.
goes down to almost where the barn is at, is where it stops at.
So
Mr. Harbin, if you'll take.
Yes.
Yeah, just so from a water perspective of this subdivision, of this concept plan, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. With respect to this, I don't think any of this is draining back towards his home.
Correct. We'll have absolutely minimal impact to Mr. Guard's house or anything like that. And this whole thing, he is right, it is sort of low. And if you see the design there, we've got a preliminary grading plan. We've actually raised the side about 4 or 5 feet everywhere around through there so we can be up above where the creek elevations are.
Right. So ultimately, yeah, the development of this and the approval of this will not negatively affect his property.
Have minimal impact, if any at all, on his property.
Commissioner Adams.
Thank you. Mike, this is your case, right?
Yes.
The applicant was asking for a change to the third condition about the tree line.
Yes.
And if I heard him correctly, he was saying that he wanted that condition changed from type C to type B.
So he was asking for, so the way the condition reads right now is to maintain the existing trees along the boundary line, which the existing trees are pretty, like they have a bit of a distributed layout to them right now, so they're not tight against each other, creating a perfect screening. So the condition was to basically install some new trees in a distributed manner, but they can use the existing ones to supplement. What he's asking for is that they feel that during the grading activities and as they do the final design, they may not be able to keep all of the trees, but where they cannot keep the trees or something happens and they have to take out one, that they'll put in a type B screen, which is actually a better, it has more trees in it, so they'll be putting more trees in than the current condition in the areas if they do remove some of the existing trees.
So type B is a better screening than C.
Type B will end up with a
Tighter?
trees, tighter that create a perfect screen between, like the trees will theoretically grow together.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is more of just a question as I'm looking at the concept plan. I see one-car garages. And if I'm looking at the scaling correct, based on what you've presented to us, where's the extra cars supposed to park? Because the driveways don't look long enough to hold the cars based on what I'm looking at here without parking on the sidewalk, which would prohibit walking on the sidewalk. So I'm just curious where the extra vehicles would go in this concept plan.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Commissioner Smith, I was confirming with Mr. Harbin. He said there was a 20-foot setback and there would be room to park there in the front within that setback.
Okay. And again, just look at page 10, because as I look at the car as it's put on here with the scaling compared to the setback, they just don't fit. That's why I'm asking that question.
Is that the turning radius?
That's turning radius.
Yes, that's just a different scale drawing right there, that turning radius that we did.
Okay.
So there is 20 feet between the property line and the front of the building. There's also another 12 feet between the actual road. So you have 12 feet from the road to the property line and then 20 feet onto the front of the building. So that's 32 feet between the road and the building front.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Huber.
Just another clarification from Mr. Mullins on that request for the Class B buffer versus the Class C buffer. Is that for the entirety of the project or just in a certain
No, that's
area?
if we can't keep some trees, we have to take some trees back. Instead of replacing that tree with a type C buffer, we would replace it with a type, in that area, with a type B buffer. So we'd actually be increasing the density of the landscaping in any area where we had to take a tree down.
Okay, so that's still for the whole thing, but just in the event you have to take one.
The recommendation is a type C buffer for the where it abuts residential. But if we have to take a tree down, we would replace it with a denser type B buffer.
Commissioner Adams.
I don't know who to address this question to, but it's about how the tree issues when you're grading and doing things, how that actually plays out. I don't think it's for you, the applicant. I think it's for someone else.
Okay.
Who can answer how this tends to happen. So if you have a tree line that's designated, it's protected, and how do you make sure that it's not an applicant just saying, it'd be a lot easier to cut these down? How do you manage that so that it is genuinely like, yikes, we made a mistake, we hit the roots, and now we're going to have to do this, as opposed to just ease?
So typically on the plans, there's a limits of disturbance, and usually there's an offset between the existing trees and the limits of disturbance for their grading. In some cases, the tree roots extend further, so they end up taking that tree out and then replacing it with new vegetation.
So it's really just up to the discretion of the applicant then?
Well, there can be on the plan shown an existing vegetation buffer shown on the plans, which they aren't supposed to disturb. But in some cases, the grading contractor gets a little bit outside the limits and they'll have to replace that vegetation.
Amanda, could you just introduce yourself for the commission so everyone
sorry.
knows? Thank you.
Amanda Perkey, Knox County Stormwater Land Development Services.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
And just a question, pardon the ignorance here, so I'm looking more to, the permits department. If we approve this, how does number 3 get triggered? So let's say we approve this, 2 weeks from now, somebody walks in to pick up building permits. How is that stopped? So that we don't have somebody start building. Is there a system that triggers you all with an alert after we pass this?
It is. We can put a note on the file, and this is on, I think this PR as well, isn't it? Is this on PR?
Yes.
So that we would, before we can issue a building permit, we would consult with Mike or someone on staff at planning to ensure that met the intent of the PR zone. So
Okay.
we would have a note on the file in the codes office.
Chair will entertain a motion.
While I've got this, I'll just go ahead and Make a motion to approve the variances and alternative design standards based on the justification provided by the applicant and recommendations of the Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the variances and alternative design standards for staff recommendation by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Levinson.
Chairman Hill,
Yes.
do you need to make a comment about the one variance that they wanted to change? About the buffer?
Yeah, that's in number 3, I think, or, yeah, number 3.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but thank you. Never wrong to be too cautious. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion on the concept plan.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve per staff recommendation the concept plan subject to the 7 conditions listed.
Second.
Got a motion to approve concept plan subject to the 7 noted conditions by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. Seeing no other lights but Commissioner Smith's, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the development plan for a residential subdivision with up to 33 attached houses on individual lots as shown on the plan, subject to the 3 conditions.
And are you going to make that modification on item number 3 from type C to type B?
Yes, sorry, with the modification of number 3 being provided that a type B landscape screening,
We've got comment from Director Brooks.
I think, that just to make sure we're on the same page, the request was that type B be substituted if the existing trees had to be removed for one reason or another. That was what we asked. That it's type C if we can keep the existing trees. If we take a tree down, the request was we replace that area with a type B buffer.
So
If needed.
If the trees come down. I know it was very important for the neighbor that we keep the existing trees, and that is our intent.
Ms. Karen, did you get that?
Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have it.
I make that motion.
Commissioner Huber.
I was just going to suggest maybe we add a line to number 3. You know, if we just kept it like it is, except maybe added something like along at the end of the last sentence. In the event existing healthy trees along the west and north boundaries of the site outside of the 50-foot stream buffer are removed by applicant agrees to install a type B buffer to replace them in that area.
Couldn't
Are
say
you
it better.
okay to amend that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to give Ms. Karen just a second here. You got it? Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the development plan for residential subdivision with up to 33 attached houses on individual lots as shown on the plan, subject to the 3 conditions, and the 3rd condition was modified with adding a last sentence that Ms. Karen has. Do you want to recite it, or do we run with it? Okay, we're good. Okay, everybody knows what we're talking about, right? Okay, so we're going to substitute type B if necessary, where type C was existing, but if they couldn't save them, they'll replace it with type B. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, just real quick. Was there a second on that? I didn't get it. There was.
Agenda item 33, applicant Amy Sherrill, location east side of Belt Road, northeast of Ginn Road Drive. Approximate size of tract, 1.16 acres. Zoning, low-density residential. Existing land use, single-family residential. Proposed use, duplexes. Density proposed, 5.17 dwelling units per acre. The staff recommendation, approve the request for 1 duplex on lots 2 and 3 only. 2 duplexes total, subject to the noted 10 conditions. Is the applicant present?
Here on behalf of the applicant.
Do we have any opposition? Okay, seeing we have Couple of folks to speak in opposition. Would you like to proceed or defer, Mr. Forrester?
I'd like to go first.
Okay.
Yeah. Taylor Forrester, 1111 North Shore Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919. Here on behalf of the applicant for the proposed request of the 3 duplexes on 3 individual separate lots. This one is kind of took me a little while to work through it, and I've talked to planning staff about it. And as far as the kind of the leading basis of the staff recommendation is that the assertion that we exceed the low density residential sector plan designation of 5 units per acre. So understood that. And normally you see that with planned residential, where you're having a planned residential up to certain amount of units per acre, but not exceeding 5 in the LDR. And the sector plan limitation on the density really doesn't apply here, because what we have here is either already in the process or will be in the process of subdividing this parcel into 3 separate tracts. And so with it being the RA zoning and what we're trying to do here with the duplexes on lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, the minimum lot size requirement is 12,000 square feet. Each individual lot meets that. Therefore, when you're subdividing and you subdivide them into separate parcels, you're really no longer tied to that mass total land original parcel with the up to 5 units per acre restriction. And kind of a further way to think about this is, to support this is if we had just come through with, I believe it's lot 2 and lot 3 that they've recommended that the duplexes be approved on. Let's say we just came through with lots 2 and lot 3 for a duplex right now, and we transfer or sell lot 1, and then in December, the new owner comes through and requests a duplex. The analysis of the sector plan of the amount up to units per acre wouldn't apply. It'd just be an individual lot, as these will be. The original design shows for lot 1 an access off an existing easement. My understanding is that was originally at staff's request that access be that from there, but noted in the staff report is if a duplex is approved for that lot lot should share the existing or the to be constructed driveway easement that we have for lot 2 and lot 3, and completely fine to do that. We agree with that condition. And so that would, as staff noted in its report, for lot 1 there, you would shift the proposed location or layout of that unit to face the other 2 units on 2 and 3 to where they do share that to be constructed access driveway easement. We do have that access easement. It's recorded. It's in place. These, if you scroll to the plans, these are very functional, very, very good layouts, units, 2 stories, garage, 3 bedroom. And I may be the first one to say it today, and I didn't think I would. This is exactly the missing middle that we keep talking about. You know, being at the end of the agenda, I thought that word was going to be hit so hard by the time we got there, but I don't believe it has. But yeah, this is in the urban growth boundary. This is kind of right outside the city limits. It's a good opportunity to provide housing for 6 different families. These are good-looking units. They're going to fit within the area. With the urban growth boundary, it encourages reasonably compact pattern of development, promotes expansion of the Knoxville, Knox County economy, and offers a wide range of housing choices. We submit that is what this does. Brings in some density into the urban growth boundary to provide some affordable housing. With that, we'd ask that you approve the proposed use on review for a duplex on lots 1, 2, and 3 with the conditions as listed. I think it's the 9 conditions. I think those would still apply with that request, and we'd ask that those be part of the recommendation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wendy Glass. I'm the property owner at 2336, where all 3 of these duplexes are going to be completely around. I was looking on the internet. I'm sorry, am I talking too loud? I feel like I'm really talking loud. I was looking last night, and I would just like to go over the the staff recommendations and then the comments to make sure that I understand correctly what we're saying. So on number 2, it kind of looks to me like lots 2 and 3 are kind of approved, right? And they will have only access through that SPAE or that SPAE or whatever, which is the easement that does not concern mine. If lot 1 is approved, also would only have access through the new easement. I had a question about number 5 because it said something about providing access to the SPAE from my easement, which is that very long one that goes right there in front of lot 1, but it says that would need to obtain a waiver to use it. It also said in number 6 that there would be no access between my driveway and the SPAE. And then in the comment section, it said that if it was a single family home in lot 1, I have a question, then will they be using my driveway? And then also down at the bottom, that it said that there would be only 76 daily trips, which in number 6, it said would not draw additional traffic through the residential area. So my question is, how does 76 additional trips not draw additional traffic to that very small residential area? Also, the property line between lots, well, really it's between lot 1, 3, and then back there behind lot 3, there's a split rail fence that I own. It's kind of like the makeshift property line, okay? I want to make sure there's a lot of greenery and shrubbery that's growing up through that split rail fence, and I'd also like to make sure that that will absolutely not be touched. Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Kirkland?
My name is Johnny Kirkland. I live at 2340 Belt Road. I've lived there for 53 years, and I used to own this property. I sold it to my neighbor who has since died, and I did give him the easement to that property for a trailer that my mother lived in, which is still there now. It's being occupied by, I think they're workers that have moved in, and that's who they sold the residence, Kenny Trout residence to. And that's the one where they're trying to get the easement through. My question is, if they're putting an easement in, and it's going to be 25 feet, bringing utilities and sewer, why use Wendy's driveway at all? Because you're going to be bringing in sewer, you have to bring in everything through that easement. Why bring it up through hers? Presently, there's no water, there's no sewer on her driveway. And it has a very steep hill at the end of it, which you can't even turn out of it without dragging. So if people are going to live in that house, they're going to drag every time. And that driveway is only 12 feet wide. There's no passing whatsoever. Someone's going to have to back up. So if you add more dwellings up there, you're going to add traffic. Now there's a trailer there, which is being occupied by the workers, and they're making it as a U-turn. They've already used it for construction into lot 1 and 2 to move some dirt down there. That area is probably 30-degree angle ditch, basically. Where's the water going to go that runs off of all of these houses onto her property? There's no way to stop it, especially if you put roofs and driveways, the asphalt and so forth. Like she said, you're going to add 72 vehicles to that road. I think when this survey and so forth was done, they didn't realize Alcoa Highway was going to be changed so much. They're less than a half a mile away. UT has opened up over 100 units. The only way to get to Chapman Highway is by way of this road or one more road. So we've got over 300 more vehicles that travel that road daily, and it's only 16 feet wide. So I'm against it because you're creating a great hazard with that traffic because the road's only 16 feet wide. In the house across the street, there's a cedar tree that stops. I mean, the school bus barely makes it. So if you add this traffic and construction, it's going to be a big problem.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Kirkland.
Just a brief response. I think kind of the I guess, primary objection was it seemed to be the use of the existing driveway. And again, with the request of the 3 duplexes on the 3 separate lots, we would use what is shown as the hash, the easement that is not an existing full driveway at this point. The driveway that isn't existing is the one listed as existing easement. So again, with the 3 duplexes on the 3 separate lots, they would all be served by the to-be-constructed driveway. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Levinson.
So you're not going to use that other right-of-way at all?
For the duplex, no, correct.
And Mike, if you're going to have duplexes, it seems, and you're going to huddle them there, and your intention is to be neighbor-friendly as far as buffers?
Sure, yeah, landscape screening, kind of the evergreen screening.
Why would we not have 3 duplexes?
Oh, in the staff report, I mentioned that the 3 duplexes goes over the low-density residential maximum density of 5 dwelling units per acre. I'm not also wild about having the duplex between the 2 single-family houses, but that's why my recommendation was to allow the duplexes on the 2 lots that lots 2 and 3 that are not between the 2 single-family houses. But the main reason is the density going over 5 dwellings per acre.
My question is, if they were to cut that lot out, as he said, and someone else were to buy it at a later time with 2 duplexes be there, would we look at that to be approved for a duplex?
It's hard to say how we would. I think we would kind of know that, we see one application today, then we see another application tomorrow, and another application next day. That it's a unified development in the end, and that's how we're looking at this as one development.
Thank you.
Director Brooks.
I'd just like to add a little bit to what Mr. Reynolds said. When we're looking at a use on review, Commissioner Levinson, you asked some really good questions there. We're looking at section 6.50, and it directly points us to make sure that anything that we recommend approval for is in compliance with adopted sector plans. And so that's why we end up looking back at what the allowable density is. But just want to provide that additional clarification.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barger.
I just need a little clarification also because of what Commissioner Levinson said. Based on the site plan, Lot 1 is using the easement that they have now, but lots 2 and 3 are using the new easement. Why would Lot 1 not use the new easement? Or is it? That's what I'm confused about.
So, when we originally submitted for Amy Sherrill, 902 North Central, when we originally submitted, we actually did have all the units coming off the easement. And then at one point, there was a request from staff to that particular lot use the existing easement. And then there was some sort of change back the other direction. Our preference would be to come off of the same driveway.
The one you're currently using or the new one?
The new one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the path of least resistance for everyone and creates the best situation for our neighbors as well.
I don't know if there was a miscommunication, but I don't know why we would necessarily request that Lot 1 come off of the existing driveway and not the SPAE, but we probably didn't say you couldn't because one, it already has access to that driveway. We just didn't want additional lots coming off of that driveway. We couldn't allow additional lots coming off that driveway.
Yeah, I think bottom line is that's the way we originally did show it. It showed different here. We're happy for them all to come off the central new easement.
Commissioner Shelso.
I move that we approve the request for a duplex on lots 1, 2, and 3, subject to the 10 conditions.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Shelso to approve one duplex on lots 1, one duplex on lot 2, and one duplex on lot 3, subject to the 10 noted conditions, and seconded by Commissioner Barger. Commissioner Levinson, do you have any comments? You got your light on. I just thought you might have a comment.
Commissioner Hill, I have a question.
For the first time,
I wasn't
don't have a
inviting one
comment.
necessarily, but
Isn't Shelso's motion different than what staff has recommended?
it is.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yes. Is everybody clear on that? So we're talking about 3 duplexes on 3 lots rather than 2 duplexes on 3 lots.
And one of the conditions specifies that if a duplex is approved on lot 1, that they all have to use the shared permanent easement, the new one.
Everybody clear on that? Any questions? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion
No.
carried. Oh, we got 1 no. Okay. All right.
Be 12-1.
What else we got? All right. We are adjourned.